My name is Dorothy. I'll be 69 years old this August, and I used to live in a small town in Texas. This is a story I never thought I'd share, but silence has a way of gnawing at you, and I've let it gnaw long enough. So, let me take you back to the night everything changed, with just a spoon and a smell I can never forget. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you are new here.
Her true story from Texas. My daughter-in-law fed me cat food, thinking I wouldn't notice. It was a Thursday evening. The sky outside looked like it had been bruised, a mixture of grey with tinges of purple. I sat at the end of a long, sleek dining table, a table that wasn't mine. The silverware was arranged too perfectly, the chairs too stiff, and the silence too heavy. My son, Michael, was still at work, leaving just Sarah, his wife, and me at home. Oh, and Whiskers, their Persian cat, who seemed to roam freely here while I felt like a guest. Sarah placed a small porcelain bowl in front of me, the kind you'd use for soup or dessert. It was steaming, a thick brown stew bubbling like mud. She didn't say what it was, but she didn't need to. I lifted the spoon slowly, cautiously, bringing it to my lips. I've had simple meals my whole life: canned beans, overcooked rice, and cheap cuts of meat. I know hunger, but this had a smell that didn't belong in a kitchen. It was sweet and metallic, with a grainy texture. I held the spoon in my mouth for a moment before setting it down gently. I said, more to myself than to her. Sarah turned from the sink, dish towel in hand, and gave a short, cutting laugh. "You're sharp, aren't you, Mama Dorothy?" "Shh," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "You're just being overly sensitive, Mom. It's nothing." Then came the line, the one that would stay etched in my mind forever. "Mum lives off us, so eating the same as Whiskers is fair." I didn't say a word. I didn't flink or blink. I simply looked back down at the bowl. Across the table, Whiskers' ceramic fish-shaped bowl was half full with the same brown mush. Sarah didn't sit down to eat with me. She never did, always claiming she'd already eaten or was on some cleanse. But I saw how she cooked when Michael wasn't around. Meals that were hot but heartless, just enough to make sure I didn't complain. Never enough to fill me. I moved in with them 3 months ago, after a fall left me with a cracked hip and a trembling hand. I needed help, or at least that's what the doctor said. Michael insisted I come stay with them. Sarah smiled, agreed, said they'd make it work. I should have known from the first smile, too wide, too fake, that something wasn't right. But I said yes because I didn't want to be alone in that house after Robert passed. That first night, Sarah gave me the guest room, barely big enough for the twin bed and dresser I brought with me. No curtains, no pictures, just bare walls with a faint smell of bleach. She smiled again as she showed me in, apologetically. "It's not much," she said, dryly, "but it's better than a nursing home, right?" I wanted to believe she meant well, even when she forgot my medication, or told her friends I was a little off and probably didn't remember much. Even when she started locking the fridge at night. But that dinner, that was something else. I sat there for another minute, staring at the bowl. I picked up the spoon again and stirred the stew slowly, watching it stick to the silver like glue. I glanced over at Whiskers. He licked his lips, purring softly, eager for more. Sarah leaned on the counter, checking her phone. "Eat up, Mama Dorothy," she said, not looking up. "It's organic." I forced a smile. Of course. I took a bite, then another, enough to make her think I was eating. The rest I flushed away later, buried under tissues in the trash. I knew better than to fight her on her terms without a plan. After dinner I went to my room, closed the door and sat on the bed. My hand was shaking again, but not from age this time. No, this was something colder, something older. A feeling I hadn't had since I was a girl. That night I didn't sleep. I listened. I heard the click of Sarah's phone as she texted in the kitchen, the soft padding of Whisker's paws on the hardwood, and the low hum of the refrigerator, still locked. When the house finally quieted down, I tiptoed out in my socks, phone clutched in my hands. In the trash bin under the sink, I found what I was looking for. A torn-open cardboard case marked Cat Gourmet Meals Bulk Order. Under it, empty cans with labels peeled away, but one still intact, a barcode, a name I didn't recognize. I didn't take the can, I took a photo. Continuing with the photo discovery scene, sound off, camera muted. I took another picture, this time making sure Sarah's monogrammed dish towel was in the frame. No fear, just a slow, steady warmth building under my ribs, like an engine coming to life. Back in my room, I plugged my phone in and opened the photo gallery. The can was clearly labelled, "Not for human consumption." The ingredients, meat byproducts, chemicals, synthetic flavours, things I couldn't pronounce. But what stood out the most was the note beneath the ingredients. Intended for feline use only. Not suitable for elderly care or assisted living. That part felt like ice shooting down my spine. I sat down, phone in hand, and let the silence fill the room again. I knew humiliation well. Life had served it to me in doses, but never like this. Not from my own family. From day one, Sarah made it clear I was an inconvenience. She never said it directly, but I saw it in the way her eyes rolled when I asked for help with my pillbox, or how her size sharpens when I took longer in the bathroom. I went back to bed. I didn't cry. Not that night. I had a plan. I laughed with her, just a soft chuckle, empty, polite, the kind you give when you want to remain invisible. Sarah leaned her head back, a smug look spreading across her face. The joke wasn't funny, but that wasn't the point. It was a test, and like all tests, it revealed exactly what I needed to know. Later that evening, as I wiped my mouth with a paper napkin and stood up slowly, she waved her hand without looking up from her phone. "Don't worry about the dishes, Mama Dorothy," she said. "We've got it covered. You should go get some rest." I nodded. "Of course, sweetheart." I shuffled down the hallway slowly, letting my slippers drag against the floor, just enough to make her believe I was tired. Absent-minded, no threat to anyone. I opened my door with a creak, then closed it just as loudly. Then I waited. 5 minutes, 10. When her laughter finally faded into the living room, I slipped back out. Quiet as a shadow, I made my way to the kitchen and pulled the trash bin from under the sink. The top layer was fresh, paper towels, a tea bag, and an avocado peel. But I dug beneath it gently, and there it was again, the cardboard box I had seen the night before. The branding was laughable, gold foil lettering over a fake wood grain background. Cat Gourmet Meals, all flavour. Inside the box, 4 empty cans. One still had the label intact. I didn't need to steal it, I only needed the barcode. I held my phone low and snapped the photo. Flash off, sound muted. Then I took another, this time making sure Sarah's monogrammed dish towel was in the frame. No fear, just a steady heat spreading under my ribs, like an engine starting up. Back in my room, I plugged my phone in and opened the photo gallery. The can was clearly labelled, "Not for human consumption." Ingredients I couldn't pronounce, meat byproducts, preservatives, artificial flavourings, but what stood out most was the note beneath the ingredients, intended for feline use only, not suitable for elderly care or assisted living. That part hit like a shard of ice down my spine. I sat still, holding the phone in both hands, letting the silence fill the room again. Humiliation wasn't new to me. Life had served it in slow, persistent doses, but never like this, not from my own family. Sarah had made it clear from day one that I was a burden. She never said it out loud, but I could see it in the way her eyes rolled when I asked for help with my medication, the sharp sighs when I took longer in the bathroom. She never made room for me on the couch. She never called me Mom, only Mama Dorothy, like I was a character in a play she didn't want to star in. I had seen it before, in neighbours, in church friends, in women like me, widowed, aging, moved in with their children, hoping for comfort only to find themselves erased, polite neglect at best, open cruelty at worst. But Sarah made a mistake. She thought I was stupid. I smiled to myself in the dark. The next morning, I deliberately left my cane in the living room. Sarah rolled her eyes when I asked her to fetch it. I misplaced my keys and blamed it on Whiskers. I repeated myself in casual conversations. "Did you say Thursday or Tuesday, dear?" I tilted my head. "I'm a bit fuzzy lately." Sarah ate it up. Her smugness grew like mould. "She's getting worse," I overheard her whisper to Michael one night when she thought I was asleep. "She caught the remote control, the telephone. I don't know how much longer we can keep this up. It's a lot." I took that as permission. Permission to forget, to mumble, to move slowly. But all the while my eyes were sharp and my ears were even sharper. I started keeping a journal again, not in a notebook, too risky. I used the Notes app on my phone, password protected, disguised under the title, Knit Patterns for Church Bazaar. There I wrote everything. Tuesday, 8:12 p.m, leftovers from Whisker's bowl poured into mine. Wednesday, 10:30 a.m, Sarah told Michael I was paranoid because I asked where the bread was. Thursday, 6:47 p.m, found another order confirmation email open on her tablet. PetSupplyDeluxe.com, recurring order, took photo. Each entry felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Not revenge, not yet, just proof. Because women like me, we don't get believed when we speak. We get called senile, dramatic, bitter. But no one argues with facts. One morning, Sarah made me breakfast, oatmeal that tasted faintly of aluminium. She smiled as she set it down. "How is it today, Mama Dorothy?" she asked, her tone sickeningly sweet. "Oh, it's lovely, dear," I replied. "Just like the kind we had in the army." She blinked. "You were in the army?" I smiled wider. "Oh, no, I must be confusing it with something else. My memory, you know." She laughed. "Right, happens." Then she walked away, not noticing I hadn't taken a single bite. That week, I ordered a backup phone, paid for it with my own bank account, an account she didn't know about. I had it delivered to the corner pharmacy under the name of an old friend. I picked it up while Sarah was out getting a facial. It was time to tell someone, and I knew exactly who. That night, I waited until she went to bed. Then I opened my hidden phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. 3 rings. "Hello," a young male voice answered. "Caleb," I said softly. "It's Grandma Dorothy." He paused. "Grandma, everything okay?" "No, sweetheart," I whispered. "Not exactly." There was a beat of silence. "Where are you with Uncle Michael and Sarah? Is something wrong?" I steadied my voice. "She's feeding me cat food, Caleb, and she thinks I'm too old and too stupid to notice." By the time I ended the call with Caleb, my heart was still pounding, not from fear, but with focus. I hadn't heard his voice in nearly a year, not since his graduation. He had always been the quiet one at family dinners, polite but perceptive, the kind who watched before he spoke. Now he was a second-year law student at the University of Texas, and my last hope. "I'm coming this weekend," he'd said before hanging up. "Don't tell anyone I called. Don't do anything different. Just wait. And I did. But I didn't sit idle. That same night, I hooked the photo of the barcode from the trash and uploaded it to my computer. I may be old, but I'm not helpless. 40 years of running a kitchen taught me more than recipes. It taught me how to research suppliers, verify labels, and read between the lines written by people who think housewives are foolish. I entered the barcode into a lookup site and pressed search. The result came back instantly. Gourmet cat meals, chicken and peas, bulk pack, 24 cans. And under the information, not for human consumption, pet use only. Contains organ meats, bone meal, artificial flavorings. I leaned back in my chair. For a second, everything inside me stilled. The room felt too quiet. The air smelled faintly of citrus and bleach. Sarah had been cleaning earlier, or pretending to. I stared at the screen, forcing myself not to feel the sting behind my eyes, not out of pride, but because if I let one tear fall, I knew more would follow. I had cooked every day of my adult life. My hands were marked by burns and calluses, memories of roasts, stews, and late-night birthday cakes. I had fed a family through layoffs, through winter storms, through illness. I knew the weight of a meal made with love, and the cruelty of a meal made to degrade. And this wasn't just neglect, it was humiliation. I saved the search result, then I went further. I looked up the supplier, PetSupplyDeluxe.com, and clicked through the open public-facing site. Sarah had an account. I knew because I had seen the tab open on her tablet. I clicked through her recent order history. She hadn't logged out. There it was, recurring order. Gourmet cat meals, chicken and peas, monthly bulk subscription. Order date, last Monday. Shipping address. My son's home. The home I helped pay the down payment for 20 years ago. I clicked on the invoice and read it line by line. She was spending more money feeding me cat food than it would cost to make a real pot of stew. That stopped me cold. It wasn't frugality. It wasn't ignorance. It was deliberate. Sarah didn't want me cared for. She wanted me humiliated. I closed the laptop gently, as if I could mute the noise of what I had just uncovered. But there was no quieting it now. The next morning I acted as I always did. Let her brew her cold tea and scroll Instagram in the kitchen. Let her pass me a bowl of something grey and say bon appetit, Mama Dorothy. I smiled. Smells delicious. I took one bite, just one. She never noticed how I folded the rest into a napkin later and dropped it into my purse. I took it to the pharmacy down the street. A friend of mine, Marcy, worked there. She used to be a nurse before semi-retiring. "Can you do me a favour?" I asked her, unwrapping the napkin. "Tell me if this is what I think it is." She frowned and leaned in. "Where did you get this?" "Sarah cooked it." Her face shifted. "Dorothy, this smells like cat food." "Need more than that. I need confirmation." She nodded slowly. "Let me make some calls." By evening, she had gotten back to me. "It's exactly what you think it is," she said. "It's a high-protein feline meal, common for people who treat their cats like royalty, but it's dangerous for human consumption, especially for someone your age. Too much sodium, too many preservatives. Dorothy, this isn't just wrong, it's illegal." I nodded. "Good." Marcy blinked. "Good?" "Because I'm not done. Not yet." That night, I called Caleb again. Told him what I had found, what Marcy had said. He was quiet for a long time on the other end. "Grandma," he finally said, "we can take this to court." "I don't want a court," I said, "not yet. I want them to know what they've done. I want them to feel it." He understood, maybe better than I did. "Then we need documentation, photos, records, and we need a moment when everyone's watching." "I'll make sure they're all there," I said. He laughed softly. "Of course you will." Friday came fast. Sarah was in high spirits. Michael's parents are coming over for dinner this weekend, she said. You'll stay in your room, okay? It's just easier that way. I smiled, naturally. I spent that day gathering everything. Screenshots, printouts, the barcode photo, Marcy's note. I tucked it all into a plain manila folder and sealed it with a paperclip. I labeled it Photos, Family Trip, 1996, so no one would bother to open it prematurely. When Saturday arrived, so did the family. Michael's sister, her husband, cousins, everyone. Sarah loved playing hostess. She wore a silk blouse and spritzed air freshener like perfume. She made lemon chicken, her one real recipe. Everyone oohed and ahed, and when dinner began, I sat at the far end of the table, just like always, in the chair that didn't match with a napkin that was paper, not linen. I looked at the plate she gave me, plain pasta, no sauce, and I smiled. Halfway through the meal, I tapped my spoon against my glass. "Excuse me," I said, my voice quiet but clear. Everyone turned. Sarah froze. "I brought a little photo album," I said. "Just something I found while organising my things. Would you all mind if I shared?" Michael shrugged. "Sure, Mum." I opened the folder, laid the photos on the table, one by one. The barcode, the supplier's invoice, the ingredient list, Sarah's order history, Marcy's signed note, and finally the label, "Not for human consumption." The silence was deafening. Sarah's mouth dropped open. Michael's face drained of colour. I sat back, calm, full. "I've eaten worse in my life," I said, "but never with less love." After the silence fell like a curtain over the dining room table. After the photos had been laid bare like dirty laundry on fine china, I didn't say another word. I simply gathered my folder, stood up slowly, and walked back to my room. I didn't slam the door. No need to. Truth slams loud enough on its own. That night, as I lay awake in my bed, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me, slow and steady like my thoughts. I heard whispers down the hall. Michael's voice, frantic and low. Sarah's sharper, defensive. Doors opened and closed. Footsteps stormed across floors that used to be mine. They didn't knock. I didn't expect them to. At 3:47 a.m., I picked up my hidden phone, the one Sarah didn't know existed, and scrolled through my contacts. Aaron UT Law was saved near the top, not Caleb this time, not the quiet one. Aaron was the oldest of my grandchildren, a third-year law student at University of Texas, Austin. Sharp, headstrong, and fiercely protective of family, especially me. He used to come over every summer when he was little, and he always called me my best grandma, even though he had 3. I tapped it. Called. He answered on the second ring, his voice groggy. "Grandma?" "Aaron," I said quietly. "I need your help." He sat up instantly. I could hear it in the shift of his breath. What happened? So I told him. I told him about the bowl, the barcode, the cat food, the way Sarah smirked while I swallowed shame disguised as supper. I told him how Michael had looked away, how the house I once helped pay for had turned into a silent prison. I told him everything. Aaron didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "I'll handle this, Grandma," he said. "Just let me handle it." I smiled. "I trust you, Aaron, but I want it done my way." He paused. "What's your way?" "Public, legal, and unforgettable." He chuckled. "Like a true Southern matriarch." "I may live in Texas," I said, "but I remember where I come from." The next morning, Aaron sent me a checklist. Copies of bank statements showing shared expenses, photos of all relevant food labels and invoices, a signed statement from a medical professional confirming dietary harm, a witness letter from Marcy, video or audio evidence if possible. "Build the foundation," he wrote. "I'll bring the hammer." So I started gathering. Sarah didn't know I had access to the family printer. Didn't know I'd once taught high school business classes before I ever stepped into a marriage. She thought I was slow, forgetful. She didn't realize I'd been filing paperwork longer than she'd been alive. I printed every invoice, clipped every receipt. I had records of my social security checks, records of the bills Michael used to ask me to help pay. Just for a little while, Mum. I had screenshots from Sarah's pet food account captured before she finally figured out how to log out of her devices. And I had the folder. By Wednesday, I mailed it all in one envelope, heavy, sealed tight, addressed to Aaron's apartment in Austin. That night, I cooked for myself for the first time in weeks. I snuck out during Sarah's nap and bought a small rotisserie chicken from the corner store. I boiled rice, chopped scallions, made a little soy sauce drizzle like I used to. I even set the table for one. I ate, slowly, savouring every bite. Not just the taste, but the dignity. The next day, Aaron called. "I've got everything," he said, "and I've already spoken to one of my professors. He specialises in elder abuse and estate protection. He's going to advise us." "Good," I said, "because I'm ready." Aaron's voice dropped to a calmer, colder register, not angry, but focused. "Here's what we'll do," he said. "We'll call a family meeting. You'll be there, I'll be there, and so will they. We'll lay out everything, just like in court. Let them see what it feels like when truth walks in the front door." I chuckled. "You sound like your grandfather." "I sound like your student," he said. "You taught me better than anyone." We picked a date. Saturday. Michael and Sarah thought it was going to be another family dinner, a reconciliation after my little outburst the week before. They even tried to butter me up. Sarah knocked on my door Friday afternoon with a tray of cookies, store-bought, overly sweet, with a fake smile to match. "I know we got off on the wrong foot," she said. "It's just been stressful for all of us." I looked at the cookies, then at her, and for once, I let silence answer. Saturday came. Aaron arrived wearing a pressed button-down and a tie, one of Robert's old ties I'd given him years ago. He kissed my cheek and whispered, "You ready?" I nodded. "Let's go feed the wolves." The family gathered around the table once more. Sarah poured wine. Michael looked stiff. Everyone tried to pretend this was normal. Then Aaron stood. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the folder, not mine, his, and from it he began to read. First, the evidence. Invoices, photos, proof of non-consumable cat food fed to a human. Then, the testimonies. Marcy's letter, a preliminary medical statement, and bank records showing I had supported their household for months without acknowledgement. Sarah's face went pale. Michael rubbed his temples, and Aaron's voice, calm and firm, delivered the final blow. "This is a textbook case of elder neglect, humiliation, and willful deception. If this goes to court, we have enough for a civil suit, and depending on the prosecutor, potentially criminal." Aaron didn't flinch. "No," he said, "I'm informing you. Grandma's not alone. Not anymore. And neither was I." A scanned property deed. Name Dorothy Harris, owner. Current and sole title holder of the house they were standing in. I stepped forward. "I was going to wait until next month," I said softly, "but now feels right." I pulled the keys from my pocket and set them on the coffee table. "I'm moving out. This house is going up for sale next week." Sarah gasped. Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. "You're kicking us out?" he finally whispered. "I'm letting you go," I corrected. "Because I deserve peace, not pity, not poison." Aaron turned off the projector. The light faded, the truth. No one clapped, no one cried. They just sat in the mess they made. I stood up. My knees weren't as quick as they used to be, but they held steady under the weight of 78 years and a truth finally spoken aloud. In my hand was a key, one I had kept in my apron pocket since the day Sarah started locking the fridge at night. It had stayed warm against my hip like a promise, and now it was time to deliver. I took 2 steps forward, heels tapping gently against the tile. Michael's birthday cake sat untouched, frosting glossy, candles unlit. Sarah's eyes followed my movements, sharp and narrow like a cat cornered. Michael stood behind her, pale, stunned into silence. I placed the key on the coffee table, deliberately, clearly. Then I looked around the room at every face. Family who had once hugged me out of obligation, who had forgotten I had once carried them as babies, cooked for them, prayed for them. And I said the words I had been holding in my chest for far too long. I'm leaving, and I'm taking the house with me. The gasp came first from Sarah's sister, then Erin stepped up beside me, holding the folder of documentation like a quiet flag of war already won. Sarah shook her head. You? You can't do that. This is Michael's home. Our home. I turned to her, calm, gentle, devastating. It was never yours, sweetheart. It was mine the day Robert and I put our names on that deed, and after he died, it stayed mine. I just never felt the need to remind anyone until now. Michael finally spoke, voice barely audible. Mom, where will you go? I looked at him. My son, my only child. I had changed his diapers, rocked him through chickenpox, packed his lunch every day until college, and yet he had sat silent while his wife served his mother humiliation on a porcelain plate. I'll go somewhere that doesn't smell like bleach and secrets, I said softly. Where I can eat food meant for people. Where silence isn't served and nodded to me. I already found her a place, Uncle. 2-bedroom condo, gated community with a kitchen she'll love. Sarah barked out a laugh. You're really doing this? You're going to abandon us after everything we've done for you? I raised an eyebrow. Everything you've done to me, you mean? She froze, then snapped. You think you're some kind of hero? You think people will care? You're just an old woman. Aaron took one step forward. She's an old woman who owns this house, who paid your bills, who fed your husband and raised your son, and who has every legal document, every photo, every testimony she needs to make sure you don't forget that again. Sarah's mouth opened, then closed. There was nothing left to say. I turned back to Michael. I wish you had spoken up, I said, quieter now. He blinked, eyes welling. I didn't know how, he whispered. You knew enough to be ashamed, I said. That was enough to act. You chose not to. The guests began to rise, some awkwardly excusing themselves, some offering tight hugs and murmured apologies. But I didn't linger. I had packed a small bag, just the essentials. I left everything else, pictures, furniture, memories, let them collect dust in the rooms where laughter used to live. Aaron walked me to his car. As we reached the door, I heard Sarah's voice behind us, no longer yelling, but desperate. Please, she said. You can't really kick us out. Michael has nowhere else to go. We have bills. The market's awful. I didn't turn around. I didn't kick you out, I said. You walked yourselves out the moment you forgot who built the floor beneath you. Aaron opened the door. I eased into the passenger seat. Before he started the engine, I looked up at the house one last time. The curtains drawn, the porch lights flickering slightly, a home that had once held joy, now just walls. I exhaled. I don't need revenge, I whispered. Aaron smiled as he shifted into drive. You already got it. The drive to Chloe's place was quiet. Aaron let the radio play softly. Something classical, nothing with words. I watched the cornfield slip by outside the window. Endless rows of green stretching into the gold of a setting sun. Texas in the summer still had that small town charm no matter how much the people inside the homes changed. My bag sat at my feet, not very full. At 78, I had learned to travel light. It's not what you carry on your back that matters. It's what you carry in your heart. We pulled into the driveway of a small white cottage with blue shutters and a porch swing. The lawn was overgrown in that soft way that meant someone lived here with dreams, not deadlines. Wind chimes rang in the evening breeze. Chloe was waiting at the door. The moment she saw me, she ran down the steps barefoot, arms open, tears already in her eyes. Oh, Grandma. She hugged me so tightly I nearly lost my breath. But it was the kind of breath you don't mind losing. She pulled back, wiped at her cheeks, and led me inside. The house smelled like vanilla and basil. She'd been baking. Photos of her college graduation, her cat Whiskers, and a framed picture of the two of us from years ago sat neatly along a shelf by the window. No marble countertops, no designer decor, but every inch of it was warm. She made tea. I sat at her kitchen table, the wood scratched from years of use. She placed a mug in front of me, peppermint my favourite. Then she sat across from me, folded her hands, and looked at me with the kind of guilt only good people carry. "Grandma," she began, her voice trembling, "I didn't know it was this bad." I smiled gently. Sarah made sure of that. Chloe bit her lip. "I knew she wasn't good, but I thought you were okay. You were always strong. You were always smiling." I reached over, placing my hand over hers. Smiling doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It just means you know the pain isn't where it ends. She burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she choked. "You deserved a better life. You sacrificed your whole life. I was too weak. I couldn't fully protect you." I squeezed her hand. "Chloe." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. "I hear you now, Grandma," she said softly. "I hear everything loud and clear." We sat there in silence for a while, just breathing together. It wasn't the kind of silence that hurts, it was the kind that heals. Later that evening, she showed me my room. The sheets were fresh and tucked tight. A small bookshelf held gardening magazines. By the window, there was a basket of yarn and knitting needles. Nothing fancy, but everything was placed with care. Not expensive, just full of heart. "You really made all this for me?" I asked. She nodded. "I started getting it ready the moment I found out what was happening." "You're safe here now," she promised, and I believed her. That night, I stood by the window and looked out at the quiet street. There were no footsteps pacing outside my door, no locks on the refrigerator, no hushed voices plotting behind thin walls. Just the sound of wind in the trees and the gentle ringing of wind chimes. I picked up my journal, my real one this time, not the digital file hidden on my phone, and began to write. June 16th. I left the house I built with Robert, up the shame they tried to feed me. I left, but I didn't lose. They lost the right to say my name without flinching. Later, Chloe peeked in before going to bed. "Need anything, Grandma?" I shook my head. "Just this." She walked over, knelt beside my chair, and rested her head gently on my lap, just like she used to when she was 5 and couldn't sleep without my humming. "You're not losing your mind," she whispered. I smiled and stroked her hair. "No, sweetheart, I never was. I was just waiting for the right moment to remember everything for them." Some apologies are best left unanswered, and some silences are the loudest form of justice. As for Melissa, Aaron told me she moved out 2 weeks after I left. No big farewell, no social media post, no grand speech. Just an absence. A quiet departure from the life they had built. She filed for a temporary separation, packed her things and left Daniel standing in the silence he had helped create. And sometimes that's all the justice you need. Now I spend my mornings with Chloe. Walking to the farmer's market, savouring every step, even when my knees protest. I cook again, real food, the kind that fills the house with warmth, that sticks to your fingers and makes your taste buds remember what real flavour is. We laugh, not because everything is perfect, but because I finally feel like I'm home, in a place where I belong, surrounded by people who listen, and in a home that remembers me. If you stayed with me until the end of this story, thank you. If something inside you shifted, if you thought of someone you care about or a part of yourself, then this is for you. If this story resonates, subscribe to our channel. Here we speak the truths that have been silenced for too long. This isn't just for sympathy. It's for clarity, for justice, and for every grandmother who has been waiting for the world to finally listen. When a grandmother speaks, you'll hear her, whether you want to or not.